All right, here we go. Tier list, meta thoughts going into the Portland Regional Championships. First major tournament I'll be attending in this format. Last major tournament in America and Canada in this format. There's still some majors outside of this one in the format, but this is the big one coming up, and I'm pretty confident. Let's establish S tier first, and I think it is just Gardevoir. I think I'm putting Dragapult in A tier. And remember, I always like to make this disclaimer. Remember, we're not making a format tier list. A format tier list and a meta tier list are two different things. The format tier list is just like, what are the best decks in the format? Tier listed out. A meta tier list, a deck can be S tier for one tournament and then B tier for another tournament, right? Decks become better and worse plays depending on what's popular, what tech cards are people including, stuff like that. I do think Gardevoir, well, I guess, hang on. I will expand on, I guess, on this a little bit further. Maybe Gardevoir shouldn't be as low as. Gardevoir is definitely going to be pretty teched for at Portland. But I still can't think of, like, a better deck, to be honest. Like, I think Guardy will be decently teched for at Portland. There's going to be Jamming Towers and Dragapults at a higher rate. There's going to be Jamming Towers and Golden Goes at a higher rate. Everyone will probably have something for Gardevoir. But I could see for Bologna, Gardevoir being in S tier alongside other decks, or maybe there's no S tier deck. Also, I don't really like using S tier because, like, people think about S tier in different ways. Just think about this as tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just think about it 1 to 5 here. So I could see Gardevoir being joined by other decks in tier 1 by Bologna in like 2 weeks. But I feel like the meta is like really at large starting to shift around Gardevoir, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of deck change. Like, I don't think people are switching archetypes for Portland to deal with Gardevoir. I think people will be including tech cards. I think we'll start to see archetype choice differences moving past this. So, like, Zoroark might become a lot more popular at Bologna and stuff like that. Maybe even Moon to Dunsparce, broken deck. But for Portland, I think it's just going to be tech card inclusions, not so much archetype switches. So I think Gardevoir is still probably just S tier above everything else. Or tier 1, excuse me. I don't want to think about. Let's not think about it as S tier because people have different criteria for S tier. Gardevoir is tier 1 above everything else. And then we have Dragapult in A, and Dragapult also might be alone in A tier, to be honest. It's hard. Like, Dragapult's still really, really good, but, and I guess, like, one argument, maybe I would value Dragapult Dusknoir higher. Like, I could see doing this because I think Dragapult Dusknoir has a way better Gardevoir matchup than straight Dragapult. I think you have a way better Gardevoir matchup as Dragapult Dusknoir than you do as no Dusknoir Dragapult. So this is the only thing I'd maybe change up here. Would put both of these in S. Well, let's rock this for now, because I don't think anyone's cutting their Dragapult techs either. Like, if anyone has a card in their deck for Dragapult, they're not cutting that for a Gardevoir tech. They're probably going to try and add a Gardevoir tech on top of that. But let's assign some meta percentages. 14 for Gardevoir. And then for the Dragapults, honestly, I think I'm just going to go to... Let's just reference... how do I go over to labs? Let's just reference labs here and see what labs looked like over the last 3 events. So I'm going to metagame. Just use this tool here. Non-Dusknoir Pult has definitely become the more popular way to play the deck for sure. Let's look at day 1 variant pairing off. So we're looking at 9%. And then 6%. Wait, is that correct? Oh, but they also grouped Dragapult Charizard in there. Was that 3%? Okay, sure. So we could do like 10 and 7, I guess, or something like that. I guess the Dragapult Charizard. Maybe I'll like just throw Dragapult Charizard on top of those, so it'll be like 12 and 8. No, it's a little bit too high. I think Dragapult percentages are going to come down a little bit for sure. We'll just like mix the Charizard numbers in here as well. So this will be like the total Dragapult number you'll see on the meta share breakdown on the stream on the weekend. So we're looking at like maybe like 10 and 7. It'll come down to like 17% of the meta, something like that. And I definitely kind of want to put this, like I said, like I feel like Dragapult Dusknoir, you have a better Gardevoir matchup than just straight Dragapult. So I do kind of want to put this one in tier 1 alongside Gardevoir. But we'll leave them both here for now. We'll fill out the rest of the tier list here. So one big criteria for me, like whenever I'm making these tier lists, like winning the tournament is one of the things that goes into mind as to how high I put a deck up in a tier list. So if I don't think a deck has a good shot, the worse of a shot I think you have to winning a tournament, even if it's still a fine play, the lower I put you on the tier list. One of the biggest things going into the weekend, of course, everything has to be able to stand up to Dragapult, right? That's kind of a given. But I think Gardevoir is going to be just as important, or if not more important, to beat to be actually winning the tournament. Like if you have a slightly unfavored Dragapult matchup, it's probably better to have that than a slightly unfavored Gardevoir matchup. I don't understand how something that consistently wins and always has top 8s is tier 2. Well, just like it's not like that's just being results oriented. We're trying to base it on how good of a play we think the deck is to win the tournament, right? How would I even like am I gonna put Raging Bolt 1 recently and also top cut like 2 or 3 of the tournaments over the weekend? I'm not putting Raging Bolt in tier 1. Like it's not about this is subjective. It is subjective, but past that, yeah, you don't just want to be full results oriented or like I think if someone can solve the Pulse to a 50-50 Guardy while not putting a 3-3-2 Dusk into their deck, probably wins the tournament, but it's so hard. I agree for sure. Yeah, if someone can come up with a build of Pulse that doesn't need Dusknorp but is like 50-50 against Guardy, you're probably in a pretty good spot. But I feel like the Nor is the difference maker for that matchup for sure in Pult builds. So you're playing Guardy? I'm not playing Guardy, no. Yeah, Dragapult does have those finishes. Actually, Dragapult really hasn't won that much. Gardevoir has won way more than Dragapult, which I could use. I could use that against your argument. What was your, I don't understand how something that consistently wins and always has multiple top 8 spots is tier 2. So I think Dragapult has won 1 tournament this format. Guardy's won like, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something. So I could use that against you, but I'm not even going to use that against you because it's not necessary. We're applying what we think is better. Like just because something has won a lot, or placed highly a lot, it doesn't actually mean it's the best play for the weekend. Remember, we're not talking about, we're also not talking about a format tier list. This is a meta tier list. We're talking about specifically for Portland. Now, to give like an example, in Bologna in 2 weeks, we could make the prediction that Guardy is going to have so much hate against it that Guardy's a terrible play for Bologna. Like every deck's going to have 2 Jamming Tower, Zoroark is going to be everywhere. Like Guardy could be a really good play. Guardy was a really good play last weekend and probably the weekend before. It's not as good of a play this weekend for sure. Guardy is less good of a play this weekend than it was last weekend, but it's still probably the best play overall. Next weekend and the week after, Guardy could be a terrible play. And I could have Guardy, like 2 weekends from now for Bologna, I could have Guardy down here in tier C. For sure. Like it's not even like, that's not even that crazy. So it's more of your tier list and just pre-decisions of the event than just the overall meta. Well, yeah, because like, what would be the point of doing this if I'm just gonna be like, all right, let's just like, because like, listen, I could just go here, right? I could just do this. I could just go to Limitless Labs, click on tournaments, aggregate all the results from all the tournaments, and then be like, oh, Guardy's the best deck, right? I could do that, but that doesn't predict the future. When we're doing tier lists and meta tier lists like this, we're trying to predict the future. We're trying to be like, this what was good. These are what the meta percentage of decks were. This is how they place. And we could aggregate all that data and it would give us a tier list, right? And we could just follow that tier list, but it doesn't predict the future. We're trying to predict the future. That's where that's where like innovation comes in. And that's why the better players are the better players in the Pokemon TCG, because they aren't just copying the numbers that exist currently for major tournaments. They're predicting where the numbers are going to be and what becomes better or what becomes different by the time a tournament comes around. So that's what we're trying to do with this. We're trying to predict the future. We're not just trying to we're trying to predict the future. We're not just trying to be content with like current tournament results. I think if you're talking future predicting, you should look how decks change from tourney to tourney in a given region, like their representation. I mean, there would be something to like add to that. I don't know. I usually don't dig that deep into like meta numbers because it usually tracks pretty similarly. Like even if you look at, I looked at this over the weekend. Like if you go, the metagame for all 3 of these tournaments was super similar. For the metagame for all 3 of these majors that happened was super similar. The only outlier was Melbourne. In Melbourne, Guardy was more popular than Raging Ball. But besides that, it was like literally the exact same. Although I will say there definitely is some differences, but they're not. The differences aren't huge. Yeah. The differences aren't huge. There definitely are sometimes some differences region to region, but I feel like they're not massive. I could be wrong on that. There might be a little bit more to get out of that, to like look into, to like get out of that. I've never like really dug that deep into like region differences. I usually just look for like overall arching predictors. Like, it's like what is decks are going to be like most teched for. Instead of trying to come up with every tech for every deck could come up with, which you could do. You could look at every deck and be like, okay, how is every deck going to adapt for Gardevoir, and which ones can adapt the best? And then how do you think people will adapt? But I usually just draw the line at I think people will adapt, and I just kind of move from there. Just repeating results would be intellectually dishonest and not responsive to meta shifts. Yeah, exactly. We're trying to predict where the meta is going, and we could be wrong, for sure. I'm wrong all the time on these predictions, but we do it, and it's good to do it because it helps you better understand the Pokemon TCG and help you deck build better. Not even like coming up with a new archetype or playing a different archetype, but like teching a deck out. Picking what tech card you want to include for a deck is like the biggest thing. Is it worth to see the pattern of change from one regional to another over the past few months, or so to see if there's a trajectory change on the meta or not? Well, the trajectory of where the meta is going is based on the most recent results, right? So if you look at a tournament a month ago, that wouldn't tell you that you should be teching for Gardevoir, right? Like Atlanta, Gardevoir was 5% of the meta, right? So we're like, oh, well, we did see Henry Chow win with Gardevoir, but let's say Henry Chow doesn't win with Gardevoir, and then Gardevoir is 5% of the meta. Like including that into our including that in our thought process is kind of irrelevant, right? There's probably something you could gain from like going back 2 weeks of, but when we just had 3 major tournaments last weekend, I feel like that's enough information to look at and then like work off that for the most part. There could be some like outliers that we could like draw from like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago possibly, but it depends how many tournaments are happening in the time frame as well, right? If you have a lot of tournaments happening really quickly, then the most recent data is going to be enough probably. Yeah, but like Thray said, there definitely is like, it does sometimes feel like there is like region shifts. Like it does sometimes feel like a region needs to have its first tournament of a format for things to progress. So the fact that the last tournament last week was in Europe, I think does affect it differently, into the point where, well, I guess it was Europe, Melbourne, and Santiago, but it wasn't in America specifically. So I feel like the adaptation to dealing with Gardevoir is going to be less so than it would be like at Bologna like 2 weeks from now probably. But so there's like a little bit of that to look at always, but that's like a lot of stuff that's like way harder to dissect, I feel like. So what you're saying to me is that Zork is at least good versus 34% of the metagame, let alone Golden Go. I'm not sure how you got that out of anything I said, but let's go with it. How do we consider that a majority of players will not pivot based on events the weekend before? How do we consider? Well, we just like keep meta percentages the same, but we want to assume that players are gonna like they still just want to win, right? They want to do better, and they enjoy the intricacies of the strategy of the Pokemon TCG, so they'll tech out their deck differently based on recent results and what they think is gonna do well or be popular. But like most people aren't gonna shift archetypes for the most part, yeah. Unless you're Yoan. Yoan's probably gonna play the Dragapult list that just won. What results of a major will have a bigger impact for Bologna, Portland, or Utrecht? For Bologna, Portland, or Utrecht? Portland, because it depends. It's also like a time difference thing as well. Yeah, Portland for sure. Just like the most recent major tournament. It also depends on how much of a spotlight the major tournament gets as well. Like the major tournament that happened in Melbourne and Santiago have a little bit less of a spotlight on them, because specifically Santiago, I feel like there's a decent amount of people who especially because like Brent won again with Gardevoir. A lot of people like know what happened at Melbourne, but Santiago has like I feel like way less people looking at it or caring about the results from that. So the results from that tournament will matter way less in terms of changing people's potential deck choices and tech choices. But Utrecht, because it was the streamed tournament, and then Portland will also be a streamed tournament. Both those tournaments, specifically Portland, because it's going to be the more recent tournament, will have a higher impact on like the metagame going from there into Bologna. And I feel like Melbourne had a decent amount of people looking at it. One, because of the anomaly, or kind of not the anomaly, but there was 5 Gardevoirs in cut. I don't know the correct term to use there, but they have 5 Gardevoirs being in cut is like interesting. And then Brent Tonneson winning again with Gardevoir is also interesting, and like brings people attention to those tournament results more so than something like the Santiago Regional. There wasn't a ton that brought a lot of attention to that tournament, and it wasn't even streamed. So there's gonna be less people who take note of the results from that as well, for sure. Does the Brixie get a separate point on the meta share graph? No. If I had the number to break down the Gardevoirs between the Brent 60 and not, maybe we would do that just for fun. But yeah, So I am kind of inclined to put this build of Dragapult up here, to be honest, alongside Gardevoir, because I feel like it has the closer Gardevoir matchup, 50-50, maybe slightly. I think it's still unfavored, like slightly unfavored, but yeah. So I'd be inclined to put this up here alongside Gardevoir, but we'll leave it down here for now. Next, let's talk about Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt's B or C. You're unfavored against Gardevoir. That's going to be the biggest knock for most decks, is going to be how good is your Gardevoir matchup. Now, Dragapult, I think, is also unfavored against Gardevoir, but Dragapult's matchup spread outside of the Gardevoir matchup is really, really good, and it's not like an 80-20 or something like that. Like, Gardevoir's not favored like 80-20 against Dragapult. Like, I don't know, against a Dusknoir build, maybe we're looking at 60-40, 65-35, 70-30 against the non-Dusknoir build. Maybe it's a little bit better for the Dusknoir build up against Gardevoir. Like, maybe we're talking about 55-45 and then like 65-35 for the non-Dusknoir build. But Raging Bolt's a little bit different, for sure, because you got like a, what, 35-65 Gardevoir matchup, 40-60 Gardevoir matchup, and your matchup spread outside of that isn't as good as well. So Raging Bolt still going to be pretty popular, though. I wonder if we're going to see a dip in Raging Bolt's percentage. I'm going to give it 12%. We'll put it in B tier for now. It might drop to C as we progress through the rest of the tier list once we see how other stuff falls. Yeah. With Baby Bolt, the Guardian matchup is actually fairly close if the Bolt player plays smart. I mean, yeah, the Baby Bolt is good into the matchup, but I don't think it's like makes that like, yeah, I don't think it makes that big of a difference. In the matchup overall, like it is good against it. It is good. It's still unfavored. That's what I guess I mean to say. 0 Masters in day 2 at Santiago played Brent 60. That is definitely an interesting stat for sure. I would not have predicted that. I think there definitely is some region biases. I don't know where they kind of come from, though. Is it because Brent is from Australia? Australian players are more likely to play Brent's 60? That feels weird. And it's because Brent isn't from Chile or even just the Latin American region in general. The players there are less likely to play Brent 60, maybe. I guess also, like, one thing that I'm pretty disconnected from is just, like, I don't know how much, like, local talk amongst players. Like, I just don't talk to players locally at all, like, in my region or in my locals. Like, I don't even know, like, what that even looks like. But is there some information share that happens there that is causing players to, like, play the Brent 60 or not play the Brent 60? And I think the Brent 60 is, like, a really cool anomaly to look at the PokemonTCG and then look at stats like that, where it's like everyone respects Brent as a player. The Gardevoir list actually, like, has, like, this whole thing tied to it being the Brixty or whatever. And we see a ton of people played in Melbourne. We saw a ton of people played in Utrecht, or some people played in Utrecht. I don't know how much it was, actually. We could take a look at that. I'm curious now. How many people played it? Let's see. Utrecht, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh wait, Melbourne and Utrecht are just, dude, there's just such a, they're just mixed together. They're just, Utrecht was a way bigger event though, so it'd be hard to calculate it fully. 3, 3, 3, 5, 5, 7, 6, 9, 9, 7, 10. All right, there was more at Utrecht for sure. There's definitely more at Utrecht, but it was a way bigger tournament, so I guess it'd be hard to calculate fully, but it might be about even, to be honest, based on the size of the tournament. So it was really just Santiago that just did not play the Brent 60, which is just, it is interesting that no one, well, I guess, no, some people definitely played it at the tournament. No one made day 2 with it. There's definitely someone in Santiago that played the Brent 60, but no one made day 2 with it, which is definitely interesting for sure. Control F for Utrecht and check the number. Oh, good call. Yeah, we could do that. Let's do that. That is interesting. So 1 is there. So 12 at Melbourne, and then how do you spell Utrecht again? Oh. -1. 18? Wait, is that correct? Yeah, 18. So 18 was 18 versus 12. But size difference in the tournaments, Utrecht was twice the size of Melbourne. And of course, there's some like making day 2 variants is involved as well, obviously. But then, yeah, like that's a pretty big number of people playing the exact same 60. And then you go over to Santiago and 0 people made day 2 with the Brent 60. I'm sure some people played it. So there's definitely some like, and I think that like probably confirms some amount of like region difference in terms of what people play. It's like it's a pretty good confirmation of that. Like there is something that is causing the players who went to Santiago to not play the Brent 60. The question is, what is that? But players in Utrecht and Melbourne very comfortable with just bringing it and playing it. Because I doubt it is like the same number based on the players showing up to the tournament played the Brent 60 and just didn't make day 2. If the same percentage of players who played Guard4 played the Brent 60 at Utrecht or Santiago or Utrecht or Melbourne, they'd probably be equal percentage making day 2. They're immune to propaganda? Maybe. Are we past the era of net decking being looked at negatively? It's never been looked at negatively. I literally mentioned this the other day. I feel like people people who net deck shame themselves more than people actually shame net deckers. The only people who shame net deckers, well, everyone's a net decker. First off, I'm a net decker. You're a net decker. Everyone's a net decker. Best players played Evo Guardian Santiago. That is actually a good point, Camille. That actually is a good point. But it doesn't really explain 0 players playing non-Evo Guardi, right? Or playing the Brent 60. You're a net decker. I'm a net decker. The people who shame net deckers are the most are people who net deck, which is anyone. They put the shame upon themselves. No one even like, the only people who actually shame net deckers are super weird and no one takes them seriously. People are more likely to put shame on themselves for net decking a deck than anyone else puts on them. It's like someone net decks a deck and be like, yo, don't hate me. I net decked this, but it's like, no one's hating you, bro. Like, so to answer your question, there never was an era of net decking being looked at negatively. No one ever looked at that negatively except for weirdos. That's the only people who ever looked at it negatively. Okay, where were we? Raging Bolt, 12%. We might put it down in C tier, but B tier seems fine. Joltik boxes next. Is it going to be B or C? Could be D. Man, am I really going to put it down in C tier and then still consider playing it? Now, if I was to play Joltik box, I wouldn't be playing like the conventional list. I think it's down, I don't know, it's like 9 or 8%. We'll give it 8%. That seems fine. My locals flame me for net decking at first, but I've converted them after a while. Definitely it's just optimal to be comfortable with net decking. Who's favorite Joltik Bolt matchup? Bolt. I mean, other TCGs, there were certainly times when people would be annoying about it, lol, but I'm not familiar with PTCG's history. I mean, it's always just been weird. I don't know. I've never seen it actually happen in the community except for weirdos who like make a big deal out of it. But yeah, I feel like people who like net deck put more shame on themselves than literally anything. But once again, everyone is a net decker. Yu-Gi-Oh was annoyed about it when I played back in 2013 versus in 2015. I mean, you did mention Yu-Gi-Oh, so Yu-Gi-Oh and being annoying. Name a what is net decking? Like going on the internet and taking a 60 cards and then playing with it, and like not coming up with your own 60 cards or innovations or anything. Just like taking the Brent 60 is net decking. That's net decking. Orc found in kitchen. Yeah, net decking is literally just copying someone's deck list that did well in a tournament through the internet. That's it. And when I explain it to you, I'm sure if you didn't know what it was before, you're like, wait, that's silly for someone to be against that. So Joltik box. Guard 4 matchup needs to be solved. I would say I do like the idea of Joltik box a little bit, but I like the idea of it by trying to solve the Guard 4 matchup and the Raging Bolt matchup. So I think the average Joltik box deck, I would put it in C tier. But my Joltik box 60, if I do bring it to Portland, will be like B tier or maybe even A tier, depending on how far we get. But the average Joltik box list is like C or D tier, I feel like, because you're unfavored against Guard 4, you're unfavored against Raging Bolt. Your Dragon Bolt matchup, I think, is favorable, at least even if it's just a little bit. If I do end up playing Joltik box, I'm trying to solve some things though. So I don't know, C or D tier. We'll put it in D tier for now. Or tier 5. No S tier, tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Terra Box, I think Terra Box actually is getting better. More people are playing Neo Upper Energy and Dragapult. I almost want to put Terra Box in A tier. I think you are slightly favored, if not just 50-50 against Gardevoir. It's probably 50-50 against Gardevoir. Your Dragapult matchup, I think, goes from slightly favored to slightly unfavored, depending on if they play Unfair Stamp. Or it's like, yeah, slightly unfavored. I think you're favored if they don't play Unfair Stamp. It's like slightly unfavored if they play Unfair Stamp. Taking an unfavored matchup to Dragapult just feels kind of bad. It's been sitting around 5-6%. Although I do think it is kind of a little bit on the come up in terms of how good of a play it is. So I'm going to give it 6%. And for Terra Box here, I'm between B and A. I'm between B and A for Terra Box. I really like the idea of Terra Box right now. So we're between B and A. We'll stick with B for now. We might bump it up to A. It's not unfavored in Pulp. I don't know. If they play Unfair Stamp, I think it's pretty close. I give it slightly unfavored. If they don't play Unfair Stamp, I think you're favored for sure. Definitely favored. Joltik and D. D for now. Remember, we're ranking the decks amongst themselves, right? As long as we can come up with like another way to think about like the tier list, like a meta tier list like this. If we can find like a I think my Utrecht list is just favored into all the turbo decks. Not gonna lie, that's why I played the quad Arvin minimal Brock. I mean, that definitely is the card you want against them, right? Maybe at the trade-off of like a worse mirror match. Yeah, we're comparing. Like if I can come up with, if I like think about them, I think this deck, like a certain percentage difference, right? If that percentage difference is reached, then the decks should be in different tiers. But like Joltik Box being D tier doesn't make it a bad deck. It just makes it like compared to everything else, it is that much worse of a play. Flareon Noctowl, your Gardevoir matchup is bad, but besides that, you're pretty good against everything else. So I almost want to put it in. Now Flareon Noctowl would be a deck where I would say, I don't think this deck can win the tournament. We just had this discussion a little bit earlier. Very rarely do I say that a deck can not win the tournament, but it could make top cut. But I think Flareon Box like perfectly fits that criteria because, I mean, you don't just auto win everything that's not Gardevoir, but your Gardevoir matchup is like pretty bad. But everything else is pretty good. So it's like I wouldn't pick this deck to win the tournament, and that's why I won't be personally playing Flareon Box at Portland. But the rest of your matchup spread is like pretty good. Flareon's matchup spread besides Gardevoir is like pretty good. You're beating pretty much everything, so pretty good deck. It's actually been down on meta percentage. So all three tournaments over the weekend, it was like 3.5 or less. But I think it's a better play than that for sure. Like I would play Flareon Box over Raging Bolt. I play Flareon Box over Golden Go right now. I play Flareon Box over... Well, I'd also play it over Dragapult, but I'm not saying you should. If you're playing Dragapult at the tournament, stick with your Dragapult, but... Yeah, I play Flareon Box over a lot of decks right now, to be honest. We'll go 4%. I feel like the community at large doesn't feel that way about the deck, so I'm going to give it its 3% that it's had recently. It probably isn't going to be crazy higher. We'll give it 4. We'll give it 4. Maybe some more people will see the light, put the Raging Bolt down, pick up a better deck. It's a great deck, but harder to play than a lot of the others. It's not that much harder. Flareon Box isn't that hard to play. It's like, it's not as hard as Terra Box. That's for sure. All right, Frostlass Monkey Dory. I'm a big fan of this deck. I love this deck. It's my favorite. Now, we had this discussion earlier, and this is my data that I'm missing on Frostlass Monkey Dory. I'm pretty sure I've beaten Gardevoir every time I played against it on the ladder with Frostlass Monkey Dory, but I actually don't know for sure how the Gardevoir matchup goes. But chat, you guys seem to think you had both opinions as always. Chat said Frostlass was favored against Gardevoir, and some people said it was unfavored. Some people said it was close. So with that information in mind, I also think you are favored against Dragapult, though. I do think you are favored against Dragapult, which is like one of the big draws of Frostlass Monkey Dory. Now, if people start adding more shenanigans to their decks, like Turos and Switches, that gets worse for Frostlass Monkey Dory because some of your matchups are pretty Maractus reliant, but not like overly. 50-50, whoever out monkeys the other wins. That's what I'm saying, but I feel like you should out monkey more often because you play 4 monkey and more dark energy. Or just snipes the Screamtail and you lose. If they can get there. It takes them a while to get there. Competent Guardy bodies Frostlass. Here we go again with both opinions all over again. Although we have some heavy Guardy believers. Limitless says it's very unfavored against Gardevoir, 30-70. Oof, that is unfortunate. According to Trainer Hill, it's 62% favored to Guardy. You guys are making me want to write off Frostlass Monkey Dory as a consideration for this tournament now. All right. I think I do have to put some decks on the chopping block and remove them from considerations to play. I think Frostlass Monkey Dory gets that chop. We'll put it down here in C tier. With the information in mind, I'm back at square one, dude. That's how I feel. Cause like I just don't know how the matchups go. I just don't know how it goes when it's played at like a higher level. This will be like what, like a 2 or 3% meta deck. We'll give it 2%, sure. Golden Go, been on the downfall for a while. I don't think Golden Go's that good right now. It's not terrible. So we're gonna give Golden Go, I don't know, 6-7% meta share, something like that. That seems fine. It's less than Joltik, but not by a lot. So my problem with Golden Go right now is I think Golden Go Pult is extremely underwhelming, and just like there's got to be a better way to play Golden Go, but I don't have the answer for that. I think assuming this Golden Go percentage is pretty much Golden Go Pult. Now Golden Go Pult also has been the most successful way that Golden Go has been played at recent tournaments. I'm not going to deny that. But if that's the best way to play it, I don't know why anyone would play Golden Go. I'm not going to lie. If the best way to play Golden Go is Golden Go Dragapult, I don't know why anyone would play Golden Go. It just seems super mid. Yeah. There might be something with like the heavy Dracloak build that I haven't tried that out, like the 3-3-4-4 Dracloak. That seems kind of cool. That'd be something to experiment with. But like the standard 2-1 shenanigans. Yeah. Using the Limitless Labs for the last 3 majors this past weekend, Frostdust Monkey Dory went 2-2-1 day 2 across all 3 tournaments against Gardevoir. Okay, I'm back on then. 55% win rate versus Gardevoir day 2 data for Milwaukee and the 3 this last weekend. Ooh, dude, I'm believing again. I guess the one thing probably positive for Golden Go's are going to be less Genesects. But yeah, assuming this is just Golden Go Pult, I just don't rate it very highly. I think the deck is like super mid. You mentioned the 4-4 Loken Dango, so I had to pop in real quick. Yo, what's up, Maddox? Yeah, there could be something there as far as like including Pult line in Golden Go. I haven't tried that, but just anything besides Golden Go, there has to be something better than Golden Go with a 2-2 Dracloak and a 1 Dragapult. There just has to be something better. It's so extremely mid. I don't know what the best way is, but assuming that is the build we're talking about, I'm gonna put it in C tier. I actually think I maybe switch these around, or maybe it looks like a little bit like this. We'll see. All these are floating around this area. Like I said though, my Joltik box list is gonna be up here. Yellow's list is neat, but I haven't tried it. I'm in the same boat. Yellow's list does look super neat, but yeah, I have not tried it. So that could be the way. But if I'm talking about the standard way people are playing Golden Go right now, it's a C tier deck. I definitely not D tier. I'm confident with Golden Go and C tier. All right, Enzork. A lot of pros for Enzork right now. Favored against Gardevoir. Very few decks are favored against. Like Zork is solidly favored against Gardevoir. Very few decks can say that. Very few decks can say this. I also think you are at least 50-50 to slightly favored against Pult. It probably depends on the builds of Pult. Like that's probably a factor. I think you're at least 50-50 to favored against Pult. Most Pult decks. I'm sure there's some builds where I don't know if there's a build where you're unfavored. I'm sure there's a build where you're unfavored. But the rest of your matchups start to fall apart a little bit from there. Flareon, Noctowl is unfavorable. Raging Bolt's unfavorable, but it's manageable. Joltik Box is a bad matchup for Enzork. Golden Go matchup is fine. I think it's closer than a lot of people think. So yeah, you have unfavored Raging Bolt matchup. I don't think it's terrible. Terrabox, I'm pretty sure, is also unfavored. That's also a matchup where I don't have a lot of information. Flareon matchup is terrible. Honestly, Frostdust Monkey Dory matchup I think is bad. That's not a matchup we really care about. We're looking at more of the bigger matchups. So you're good against the top 2. That's pretty good. It's a good start. But then pulling together the rest of your matchup percentage becomes a little bit difficult for Enzork after that. Like I said, Flareon bad. Raging Bolt unfavored. Terrabox I think is also just bad. Like I said, I'd have to play that one more, but it doesn't seem great. Dango's fine, but it can be close. I think you're favored against Dango, but it's not like it's not by you think you'd be really favored against Dango. You're not that favored against Dango, but you are favored. Yeah, you are favored against Dango, but you're not that favored against Dango. As long as they don't leave energy in their discard pile. Obviously, if they do that, you're gonna just win. But didn't you like playing Zoroark a lot at the start of the format? I did. I love playing Zoroark. Zoroark's sick. It's one of my favorite decks to play with. But we're talking about how good do we think the play is, not how much I like playing it. As far as percentage goes, we'll give it like, well, honestly, we might see a decent uptick in Zoroark as people are trying to counter Guardy. Like, I don't think we're gonna see a huge shift in terms of archetype changes, like I mentioned, but Zoroark might be one of them that gains a little bit more steam. It was like 3% across the board at all the tournaments, 3.5, all the tournaments across the weekend, but we'll put it up to 5 here going into Portland. And I think I still rate it as a B tier play. I don't like using this term, but as far as risky plays go, like Zoroark is the risky play of the tournament. You're like, I hate using this term, but you're trying to match up roulette your way into Dragapults and Gardevoirs. I think you can go like a step deeper with Zoroark as well, and you can apply the what are good players going to play though. Azul Conti in his last podcast that you need to come to the Potternon's Cup if you are the real best. Where's the Potternon's Cup? For Zoroark, you can go like a level deeper. I usually don't like applying this too often to like picking decks or analyzing decks, but like you can apply the what will good players play filter to Zoroark, and good players are way more likely to play Dragapult and Gardevoir than basically any other archetype. I think actually the third deck that good players are most likely to play, honestly, outside of that is like maybe like Flareon Box and Terra Box. Those are like next in line for that, which is not good for Zoroark, but but yeah, you can apply the what are good players going to play filter to the matchup to how good of a play it is, and it's like good players are going to play Dragapult and Gardevoir, which means you're going to play against less skilled players on average when you play against any of the other decks, which does give you a potential edge to actually getting to the top with Zoroark. So with that in mind, I think I do want to put it in B tier. I don't like applying that thought process very often to analyzing decks, but... And then last up, Roaring Moon to Dunsparce. I don't know, we're talking 3, 4, 5, 3. Now, I really like the idea of this deck. My big hang up was how good is the Pult matchup? After hitting up the #1 Roaring Moon to Dunsparce enjoyer, Aiden, he has unfortunately informed me that the Pult matchups are both unfavorable, but straight Pult's not that bad. It's like 45-55, but the Dusknoir build is pretty tough and definitely bad if they have stadiums. So no, it's higher than 2%. All right, sure. We'll give it 2%. So if you're got a good Guardy matchup, but you're unfavored to Pult, I mean, that's almost just as bad. It's better to have a good Guardy matchup than a slightly unfavored Pult matchup, but it sounds like the Pults can be tough for the Moon to Dunsparce. So it almost feels like I gotta put Roaring Moon to Dunsparce down in C tier with the rest of the squad. I almost don't want to put anything in D tier, to be honest. Nothing feels like a grade below or above in that sense. Why is Mamoswine not on the list? Because it's not a meta deck. Has bad Joltik and Radiant Ball matchups, but I think it's a big factor for Attorney success. Yeah, like it being successful wouldn't be a surprise, but yeah, you're hoping to dodge some matchups maybe. Just a general question: if you play Baby Moon, can you even play the McDonald's promos? I don't even see them on Arcanine. You should be able to. Yeah, I would assume yes. You don't need to have the exact promo input or whatever. You can just put in a Moon and you should be fine. Well, you can put Tank Terrapagos in D tier just so there's something in to warm the bench. You know what? I got you. We can do that. Actually, no, if I add a deck, it resets everything, so I can't do that. Zard is here. So just, all right, so if I click on this and I add a deck, it resets all my meta percentage numbers, so I'm not going to do that. But just imagine in D tier, there's Ancient Box, every Charizard variant, and what was the other one that someone mentioned? Archaludon, Tank Terrapagos. Just imagine they're there here in D tier. We got Charizard. Oh, Charizard variant 1, D tier. Charizard variant 2, D tier. Charizard variant 3, D tier. Charizard variant 4, D tier. Oh, Ancient Box is down there. What else we got down there? What about Okidogi? Okidogi would unironically probably be C tier. But because it has a bad Guardy matchup, I don't think I can put it like that much past it. Because it's matchup. Well, actually, no, it's a matchup spread outside of that might be good enough to put Okidogi in B tier. But having played 0 games with it, I couldn't really put it higher than that. I could see it being like theoretically be C tier though. Great Tusk Mill, C tier. Honestly, I'd rather play Great Tusk Mill than Charizard for sure. I'm down. All right, let's go over this one more time. Gardevoir tier 1 by itself, 14% seems fine. Tier 2, both Dragapult builds. I don't think I'm gonna put this in tier 1. I'll keep Dragapult Dusknoir in tier 2, but like just so you guys understand my full thought process, like I'm in between tier 1 and tier 2 for Dragapult Dusknoir. Like I'm in between tier 1 and tier 2. I think Dragapult no Dusknoir I would keep in tier 2. Like I'm confident with this deck in tier 2 because you have a worse Gardevoir matchup than Dragapult Dusknoir. So leaving it like this seems fine. Tier 3 here, Raging Bolt yeah, seems fine to have Raging Bolt there. And Zoroark, Flareon, Noctowl as well. And Zoroark and Flareon are both pretty solid decks, but they have a little bit more polarizing of matchups. They don't have as wide of a matchup spread as something like the Raging Bolt, but it keeps them in the same tier about. Terrabox is actually the deck I am most wanting to put from B tier to A tier, but I'm not that confident in doing that. But if there was a tournament to do it for, it would be this tournament or Bologna, to be honest, in 2 weeks. So Terrabox, I'm in between tier 2 and tier 3. It's close, it's close. Is EV Box not even get a spot on the tier list? No, it's right here. This is EV Box. B tier. And then C tier here. Man, all the decks that I was thinking about considering playing are in C tier. All the decks that I wanted to put on my list of decks that I was going to consider playing are in C tier. I was like, I kind of like the idea of Roaring Wounded on Sparse. But after thinking about it a little bit more, Unfavored against Dragapult. Honestly, Roaring Wounded on Sparse actually probably does deserve B tier. I'm going to bump it up to B tier because despite having an unfavorable Dragapult matchup, they aren't extremely unfavorable. And then you're like favored against like everything else with Roaring Wounded on Sparse. You're favored against Gardevoir, favored against Raging Bolt, favored against Flareon, Noctowl. Terrabox I think can be close, but you should beat that. You should beat Enzork. Yeah, never mind. I'm gonna move him up a little bit. I'm gonna move the Wounded on Sparse into B tier. Golden Go, I'm confident in C tier, unless someone comes up with a new build, bro. Because the Pulp build that everyone's been playing is just so underwhelming. Frostlass Monkey Dory, if we assume it has a bad Gardevoir matchup, an unfavored Gardevoir matchup, then I would put it in C tier. And then Joltik Box I have down here as well. Unfavored against Gardevoir unless you fix that matchup. Now, if I can fix... I still have Joltik Box on my list of decks that I want to play, as long as I can fix... as long as I can fix some of its matchups. If I can fix its Gardevoir matchup. If I feel like I can fix its Gardevoir matchup, and then I feel like I can fix its... That's kind of it, Gardevoir matchup. As long as I can fix the Gardevoir matchup. If I feel like I can fix that matchup, then I actually kind of like the deck. What's your list? We're going to work on that next. But yeah, do I want to change anything with Frostlass Monkey Dory or Joltik Box? Honestly, maybe what I need to do is drop things lower. So maybe I like put Golden Go down here and move things up alongside the Dragapult. Maybe I feel like I need another tier in this tier list because I want to put Terrabox a tier higher, but I don't want to move a bunch of other stuff a tier higher. And I want to move, I want to do like this, but I want like a tier for Terrabox by itself. I don't want to put these two decks up in Gardevoir's tier. So maybe I do put Terrabox up here actually, and then Raging Bolt and Zoroark. So I just need like a 6th tier to work with here, to be honest. Joltik is favored against Guardy. Is unfavored against Guardy? Yes, it is unfavored. Joltik Box 60 feels good to everything. Bro, you got the broken 60. If they're in the bottom tier, just delete it. So do I put Golden Go in D tier by itself? And then Frostlass Monkey Dory. See, the thing is, I almost like rate Frostlass Monkey Dory. Please add another deck to add to C tier. I almost feel like Frostlass Monkey Dory is kind of on the same tier as Roaring Moon, like Frostlass Monkey Dory, if you have an unfavored Gardevoir matchup. But even then, the Gardevoir matchup seems like it might be like 50-50. So maybe Frostlass Monkey Dory does make its way up here into B tier still. Yeah, maybe Frostlass Monkey Dory does make its way up into B tier actually. And then I just leave Joltik Box down here. Now, I think Joltik Box could be a lot. If you can make the Raging Bolt matchup and the Gardevoir matchup both 50-50, I think Joltik Box is actually a really good play. Like maybe even like A tier. So that's going to be one of the question marks is can we come up with a list that actually does those two things? That we feel like does those two things without sacrificing too much. I feel like just like the standard Joltik Box 60 is like a C tier deck, to be honest. That's how I'm feeling about it. All right, that's it. Final tier list. We're just going to lock it in. Obviously not perfect. And there's like some things that could be switched around a little bit, but better than anyone else's tier list. I have the best tier list out there. Quote that.